The transport ship shook as it landed on Nexus Prime. Inside the metal box, 12 humans sat next to creatures they had never seen before. Kang Minho looked out the small window at the alien world. Red sand stretched as far as he could see. Strange buildings rose from the ground like twisted fingers reaching for the purple sky. "First time off Earth?" asked Park Sola, sitting next to him. Her voice was quiet but steady. She was small even for a human, but her eyes were sharp and alert. Minho nodded. He had been a soldier back home, fighting in places most people never heard of. But this was different. This was supposed to be an honor. Earth had been invited to join something called the Galactic Military Academy. Only the best from each world got to come. The door opened with a loud hiss. Hot air rushed in, carrying smells that made Minho's nose wrinkle, something like burning metal mixed with rotting flowers. The other creatures started moving toward the exit. Minho watched them carefully. There were the Veltar, tall beings made of what looked like living crystal. Light moved through their bodies in strange patterns. They moved slowly, but with purpose. Next came the Kresh, insect-like creatures, with 6 arms and eyes that never seemed to blink. Their movements were quick and jerky. The Morlin looked almost like humans, but their skin changed colors like a lizard's, and they had gills on their necks. "Stay together," said Lee Teho, another human. He had been a pilot before this. His hands never stopped moving, always checking his gear or touching the walls. "We don't know what we're walking into." Yunari, who had been a medic, was helping another human who looked sick from the trip. "We'll be fine," she said, but her voice was tight. "We're here to learn." The humans walked out together. The alien world hit them like a wall. The gravity was heavier than Earth's. The air was thick and hard to breathe, but they kept walking. A massive figure waited for them at the bottom of the ramp. Instructor Vexthul stood nearly 3 meters tall. His skin was dark green and covered in scales. His arms were as thick as tree trunks. Sharp teeth filled his mouth, and yellow eyes looked down at all the new recruits like they were insects. "Welcome to the Galactic Military Academy," Vexthul said. His voice was deep and rough like rocks grinding together. "I am your instructor. For the next 6 months you belong to me. You will eat when I say eat. You will sleep when I say sleep. You will breathe when I say breathe." The alien recruits all looked down at their feet. Some of them were shaking. The Veltar's lights grew dim. The Kresh pulled their arms close to their bodies. Even the Morlins stopped changing colors. But the humans just stood there, looking back at the massive alien. Vexthul's eyes narrowed. He had done this welcome speech hundreds of times. Every group of recruits reacted the same way. Fear, respect, submission. But these new creatures from the planet called Earth were different. They looked at him like they were trying to figure something out. "Perhaps you did not understand," Vexthul said, taking a step closer to the humans. "This is not your primitive world. Here strength matters. Here the weak serve the strong. Here I am the strongest." One of the Veltar made a sound like wind chimes. A Kresh clicked its mandibles nervously. The other instructors, watching from the sides, smiled. They knew what was coming next. Vexthul always picked one recruit from each new group, someone small and weak-looking. He would hurt them just enough to make a point. The others would learn their place quickly after that. His yellow eyes moved over the humans. Most of them were bigger than he expected. These Earth creatures were built differently than the files had said. Thick muscles, dense bones, scars that spoke of fights survived. But there at the back of the group was a smaller one. Kang Minho was not the smallest human there, but he looked quiet, calm. He stood with his hands at his sides, watching everything but saying nothing. "Perfect. You," Vexthul pointed one clawed finger at Minho. "Step forward." Minho looked at his fellow humans. Park Sola's jaw tightened. Lee Taiho's hands curled into fists. Yunari took a step forward like she wanted to help, but Minho shook his head slightly. He walked forward until he stood directly in front of the massive alien. "State your name and world," Vexthul commanded. "Kang Minho." "Earth." was all he said. Vexthul smiled, showing all his sharp teeth. Earth, the newest world to join us. Tell me, Kang Minho from Earth, what do you think of our academy so far? It's different from home, Minho answered simply. Different? How? Minho looked up at the alien instructor. He was not afraid, just curious. Bigger, heavier gravity, strange smells, hot. Vexthul's smile got wider. And what do you think of me? You're very large, Minho said, and you want me to be afraid of you. The other recruits made small sounds of shock. No one talked to Instructor Vexthul like that, not if they wanted to survive their first day. Vexthul's smile disappeared. Afraid? You should be terrified, little Earth creature. Do you know what I do to recruits who show disrespect? No, sir. But I think you're about to show me. The punch came faster than any of the alien recruits could follow. Vexthul's massive fist shot forward like a striking snake. The sound of impact echoed across the landing field. Crack. The sound of bone breaking was sharp and clear. Kang Minho flew backward 3 meters. He hit the ground hard and rolled twice before coming to a stop. Blood poured from his nose, which was clearly broken. His face was already swelling. The alien recruits moved backward, making frightened sounds. They had seen this before. Now the human would cry or beg or submit. The lesson would be complete. But Minho did not cry. He did not beg. Slowly, carefully, he pushed himself up from the ground. Blood dripped from his face onto the red sand. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and looked at the blood like it was interesting. Then he stood up. Is that all, sir? He asked. The silence that followed was complete. Even the wind seemed to stop blowing. Vexthul stared at the small human who should have been broken, who should have been learning his place, who should have been crying for mercy. Instead, Kang Minho just stood there, blood running down his face, waiting for whatever came next. The other humans had not moved. They watched their friend bleeding and did nothing to help him. But their eyes had changed. Something cold and calculating had appeared in their faces. They looked at Vexthul the way a hunter looks at prey. For the first time in many years, Instructor, Vexthul felt something he had almost forgotten. A tiny seed of doubt planted itself in his mind. These Earth creatures were not reacting the way they should, not the way every other species did. Clean yourself up, he said finally. Training begins at dawn. As the recruits were led away to their barracks, Vexthul watched the humans go. They walked together, supporting their injured friend without making it obvious. They talked in low voices, but their body language spoke of planning, of preparation. The seed of doubt grew a little bigger. That night, as the 2 moons of Nexus Prime rose over the academy, Instructor Vexthul made a decision. These humans needed to learn their plays quickly. Before they gave the other recruits dangerous ideas about resistance, he would break them properly tomorrow. In the human barracks, Kang Minho sat still while Yoon Nari looked at his nose. It's broken, she said quietly. But not too badly. I can fix it. Leave it, Minho said. It will heal. Why didn't you fight back? Lee Taeho asked. His voice was angry. You could have dodged that punch. Yes, Minho agreed. But then we would not have learned what we needed to know. Park Sola looked up from where she was examining the walls of their room. What did we learn? Minho touched his swollen nose and smiled through the blood. We learned that he hits hard, but not as hard as he could. We learned that he wants to scare us, not kill us. And we learned something else. What? He's never fought a human before. The alarm woke them before dawn. Loud, harsh sounds echoed through the barracks like screaming metal. The alien recruits jumped up immediately, their different species all showing fear in their own ways. The Veltar's lights flashed quickly. The Kresh made clicking sounds with their mouths. The Morlan turned dark colors. The humans got up more slowly. They moved together, checking on each other without words. Kang Minho's face was purple and swollen, but he walked normally. Yoon Nari had worked on his nose during the night. It still hurt, but it would heal straight. Outside, Instructor Vexthal waited in the training yard. The purple sky was getting lighter, but the air was still cold. He looked at each recruit as they lined up. His yellow eyes stayed on the humans longer than the others. "Today you begin real training," he announced. "You will learn what it means to be soldiers in the galactic military. You will learn to follow orders without question. You will learn to push your bodies beyond their limits." He pointed to an obstacle course that stretched across half the training field. It had walls to climb, ropes to swing from, pits to jump over, and barriers to crawl under. Sharp metal spikes stuck out in several places. Dark stains on some of the obstacles looked like old blood. "You will complete this course. All of you. Those who fail will repeat it until they succeed or until they break." Vexthal's smile showed his teeth. "The Veltar will go first." The crystal beings moved toward the course. Their hard bodies made climbing easy, but they were slow. When the first one reached a rope swing, the rope cut into their crystal skin. They made sounds like breaking glass but kept going. By the time they finished, several had cracks running through their bodies. The Kresh went next. Their 6 arms helped them climb and swing, but their insect bodies were not built for some of the obstacles. 2 of them fell into pits and had to be pulled out. One cut its leg badly on the spikes. The Moorland did better. Their skin changed to match whatever they touched, helping them grip surfaces. But they were not strong, and several collapsed from exhaustion before reaching the end. "Pathetic," Vexthal said, but he did not sound surprised. "Perhaps the humans from the primitive world will do better?" The 12 humans walked to the starting line together. They did not talk, but they looked at each other. Small nods and glances passed between them. Without anyone saying anything, they had made a plan. Lee Teho went first. He was fast and strong, moving through the course like he had trained on it his whole life. When he reached a difficult jump, he stopped and looked back. He pointed at handholds the other humans could use. He showed them the best path around the spikes. Park Sola went next, then Yoon Nari. Each human who completed the course left signals for the others. Scratches on walls to show good grips. Small stones moved to mark safe paths. By the time Kang Minho ran the course, despite his injured face, every obstacle had been mapped and marked. All 12 humans finished in less time than it had taken the Veltar alone. Vexthal watched them with growing anger. They were supposed to struggle. They were supposed to fail and get hurt and learn to fear the training. Instead, they had turned his obstacle course into a team exercise. "Unacceptable," he growled. "You helped each other. That shows weakness. Soldiers must be able to fight alone." "With respect, sir," said Park Sola. "Soldiers fight in units. Teams are stronger than individuals." Vexthal's claws extended from his fingers. "You dare question my methods?" "No, sir. Just making an observation." The instructor stepped closer to her. Park Sola was the smallest of all the humans, barely reaching his chest. "Observation? I will give you something to observe." His massive hand shot out and grabbed her arm. The sound of bone breaking was loud and clear. Park Sola's face went white with pain, but she did not scream. She did not fall down. She just looked at her broken arm like it was an interesting puzzle. "Yoon Nari," she said calmly. "I think this needs attention." The human medic stepped forward without asking permission. She examined Park Sola's arm, while Vexthal watched in confusion. This was wrong. The small human should be crying, should be begging for help, should be learning her place. Instead, Yoon Nari was setting the broken bone with quick, professional movements. Park Sola bit her lip but made no sound. In minutes, her arm was in a makeshift sling made from torn cloth. "Thank you," Park Sola said. Then she looked back at Vexthal. "Is the exercise finished, sir?" The other alien recruits stared in shock. They had never seen anyone react to Instructor Vexthal's punishments this way. The humans were supposed to be from a primitive world. They were supposed to be weak and easily broken, but here was their smallest member with a freshly broken arm, asking if there was more training to do. Vexthal felt the seed of doubt in his mind grow bigger. These creatures were not normal. They did not react to pain the way other species did. He needed to try harder. "Combat training," he announced. "You will fight each other. The losers will be punished." He paired them off, making sure to put humans against the larger aliens. A Veltar against Lee Taeho, a Kresh against another human named Kim Jae, a Morlin against Yoon Nari. The fights were supposed to be quick lessons in humility. The aliens were bigger, stronger, had natural weapons like claws and crystal-hard skin. The humans were soft and small and should have been easy to defeat, but the humans fought differently than any species Vexthul had seen before. Lee Taeho did not try to match the Veltar's strength. Instead, he moved constantly, staying just out of reach. When the crystal being swung its heavy arms, Taeho was not there. When it tried to grab him, he slipped away like water. He found the joints between crystal plates and struck there, not hard enough to seriously damage, but hard enough to make his point. The Veltar, confused by tactics it had never encountered, began to move more slowly. Its lights dimmed with fatigue. Finally, it simply stopped moving and admitted defeat. Kim Jae faced the six-armed Kresh by making the extra arms a weakness instead of a strength. He grabbed two arms and used them to tangle the others. The insect being, used to coordinated movement, could not adapt when its own limbs worked against it. Yoon Nari, the medic, showed that healing knowledge worked both ways. She knew exactly where to strike the Morlin to cause maximum pain without permanent damage. The color-changing aliens surrendered quickly. One by one, the humans defeated opponents twice their size. Vexthul's anger grew with each victory. This was impossible. These primitive creatures should not be winning. They should be learning their place at the bottom of the hierarchy. "Enough," he roared. "Clearly, you need a more direct lesson." He grabbed Kang Minho by the throat and lifted him off the ground. Minho's feet kicked in the air, but he did not struggle wildly like most beings would. His hands went to Vexthul's wrist, but instead of trying to pull the massive fingers away, he seemed to be studying them. "Tell me, little earth creature," Vexthul said, his grip tightening. "How long can you hold your breath?" Minho's face was turning red, but his voice was still calm. "Longer than you might think, sir." "We shall see." For 30 seconds, Vexthul held the human in the air. Other species would have passed out by now, but Minho's eyes stayed focused and alert. He looked at Vexthul like he was memorizing something important. Finally, the instructor dropped him. Minho hit the ground but rolled and came up on his feet, coughing but standing. "Impressive," Vexthul admitted, "but pain tolerance means nothing if you cannot protect your pack." He turned toward Park Sola, who still had her arm in a sling. The threat was clear. That was when something changed in the humans' eyes. Up until now, they had been learning, testing, figuring out how this new world worked. But threatening one of their own was different. Kang Minho stepped between Vexthul and Park Sola. His voice was still quiet, still respectful, but something cold had entered it. "Sir, I don't think that would be wise." "You threaten me, little creature?" "No, sir. Just another observation." Vexthul looked around the training yard. The other instructors were watching now. Some had stopped their own training sessions to see what would happen. The alien recruits pressed back against the wall, sensing something dangerous in the air. The humans stood together in a loose group. They did not look angry or ready to attack. They looked calm and patient. But there was something in their stillness that reminded Vexthul of hunting predators he had known on other worlds. "Training is finished for today," he said finally. "Return to your barracks." As the group separated, Vexthul watched the humans help their injured teammates. They moved together like a military unit that had trained for years, not strangers, who had met yesterday. That night he made another decision. Tomorrow he would push harder. He would find their breaking point. Every species had one, even these strange creatures from Earth. 3 days had passed since the combat training. 3 days of Instructor Vexthul pushing harder and harder, trying to find the point where the humans would break. He had increased the physical training until aliens were collapsing from exhaustion. He had added psychological exercises designed to break down mental barriers. He had deprived them of sleep and food. The other alien species were showing clear signs of stress. The Veltar's lights flickered weakly. The creche moved more slowly, their coordination suffering. The Moorland could barely change colors anymore, staying a dull gray most of the time. But the humans seemed to be getting stronger. They shared their food with weaker recruits. They took turns sleeping so someone was always awake to help others. When one human was pushed to exhaustion, the others would cover for them during exercises. They had turned Vexthul's individual punishments into group support systems. Worse, the other aliens were starting to copy them. A Veltar had begun sharing energy with a weaker member of its species. The creche were working together instead of competing with each other. Even the shy Moorland were helping each other through difficult training. This was not how the academy was supposed to work. For hundreds of years, the program had been based on one simple principle: the strong rise while the weak are broken. It created perfect soldiers who followed orders without question, because they had learned that resistance only brought pain. But these humans were teaching resistance. They were showing the other species that there were ways to survive that did not involve submission. Vexthul paced in his office as the sun set over Nexus Prime. Through his window, he could see the training yards where his recruits were supposed to be resting. Instead, he saw groups of mixed species doing exercises together. Humans teaching aliens how to move more efficiently. Aliens sharing their natural advantages with humans. It was unacceptable. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. "Enter," he commanded. Sub-Instructor Carvin slithered in. The snake-like being was one of Vexthul's assistants, known for his loyalty and ruthlessness. "Sir, the evening report." "Speak." "The recruits continue to improve in all areas. Physical capabilities are up 15% from last week. Team coordination has increased dramatically. Problem-solving scores are the highest we have ever recorded." Vexthul's claws scraped against his desk. "And discipline?" Carvin hesitated. "Technically perfect, sir. They follow all orders. They complete all exercises. They show proper respect to instructors. But they are united, sir. The species barriers are breaking down. The humans seem to be the center of it, but all the recruits are beginning to act more like a single unit than separate groups." This confirmed Vexthul's fears. The Academy's system depended on keeping the species separate and competitive. United recruits were dangerous. They might start asking questions. They might start thinking for themselves. "I want you to increase the psychological pressure," he ordered. "Focus on the humans. They are the source of this infection." "Sir, with respect, we have already pushed beyond normal parameters. The other species are at their limits. Then we will push beyond their limits." Vexthul stood up, his massive frame casting shadows across the room. "Tomorrow I will make an example that these primitives will never forget." The next morning came too early, as always. But this time, Vexthul had a special lesson planned. He watched the recruits line up in the training yard. The humans looked alert despite their lack of sleep. Their eyes were always moving, always watching, always learning. Today he would teach them that some lessons were too painful to bear. "Today we study interrogation resistance," he announced. "In real combat, you may be captured. You must learn to protect important information even under extreme pressure." He gestured to a chair that had been placed in the center of the yard. Metal restraints were built into the arms and legs. Dark stains covered the seat and floor around it. Each species will provide one volunteer to demonstrate proper mental discipline under stress. The alien recruits looked at the chair with obvious fear. They knew what happened to volunteers in Instructor Vexthul's demonstrations. Several of the creche began clicking nervously. The Veltar's lights dimmed to almost nothing. "I will choose the volunteers," Vexthul continued. "From the Veltar, Shentak." A medium-sized crystal being stepped forward reluctantly. From the creche, Velzon. An insect-like alien moved toward the chair with dragging steps. From the Moorland, Pexhull. A color-changing being approached, its skin cycling through rapid, panicked color changes. And from the humans. Vexthul's eyes moved over the 12 Earth beings. He had been watching them, learning their relationships. He knew exactly who to choose for maximum effect. Yun Nari. The human medic stepped forward without hesitation. Her face was calm, but Kang Minho and the other humans exchanged quick glances. Nari was not just their healer. She was the one who held them together emotionally. She was the one who had patched their wounds and shared her food and stayed awake to comfort aliens having nightmares. She was the heart of their group. Excellent choice, Vexthul said, noticing the human's reaction. The medic who thinks she can heal everyone will learn what real pain feels like. Nari walked to the chair and sat down. She did not resist when Carven fastened the metal restraints around her arms and legs. She looked straight ahead, breathing slowly and steadily. The exercise is simple, Vexthul explained to the watching recruits. I will ask questions. The volunteer will resist answering. We will see how long their mental discipline lasts. He started with the aliens. Shentak, the Veltar, lasted 12 minutes before the pain broke through their crystal shell, and they began answering every question. Felzone, the Kresh, held out for 8 minutes before their insect mind cracked. Pexhole, the Morlin, broke in just 5 minutes. Each demonstration left the alien recruits more terrified. They saw their own people reduced to sobbing, broken, beings who would say anything to make the pain stop. Finally, it was Yun Nari's turn. She sat in the chair like she was waiting for a medical examination. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was controlled. When Vexthul activated the pain inducers built into the chair, she closed her eyes and seemed to go somewhere else in her mind. The first level of pain would have made most beings scream. Nari's jaw tightened, but she made no sound. What is your unit's mission on Earth? Vexthul asked. Silence. He increased the pain. Nari's hands clenched into fists, but her voice stayed steady. I think you know I can't answer that, sir. More pain. Enough. To break most species completely. A small sound escaped Nari's lips, but it was not a scream. It was almost like a sigh. Your planet's military capabilities, how many ships, how many soldiers? That's classified information, sir. Vexthul felt his anger rising. The pain levels he was using should have reduced her to a babbling, broken mess. Instead, she was giving him nothing but calm, professional responses. He increased the intensity again. This time, Nari did make a sound, a low groan that seemed to come from deep in her chest. Her body shook against the restraints, but when she opened her eyes and looked at him, there was no fear there. No submission, no breaking. There was something else. Something that made Vexthul's blood run cold. There was pity. That's enough, she said quietly. You're hurting yourself more than me. What? Vexthul snarled. This is what you do when you can't win fairly. You hurt people who can't fight back. But it's not making you stronger. It's making you weaker. Her voice was gentle, like a medic, explaining a diagnosis to a patient. You're so afraid of being challenged that you have to break everyone around you. That's not strength. That's fear. The silence that followed was complete. Every recruit in the yard could hear what she was saying. Worse, they could see that she was right. Instructor Vexthul, the strongest being any of them had ever met, was torturing a small human medic because he was afraid of what she represented. You know nothing about strength, he roared, turning the pain to maximum levels. Nari's back arched against the chair. Her teeth ground together. Tears ran down her face. But she did not break. She did not beg. She looked at him with those same pitying eyes. I know enough, she whispered. That was when something snapped inside Vexthul. Not her resistance to pain, but his own restraint. The careful balance between intimidation and actual harm that kept the academy functioning. The rules that said, instructors could hurt recruits but not destroy them. His massive hand shot out and grabbed her throat. The restraints were supposed to keep volunteers safe during demonstrations, but he was no longer demonstrating. He was attacking. You will submit, he hissed, his claws pressing into her skin. You will break. You will learn your place. Blood began to run where his claws cut her. Nari's eyes went wide as she struggled to breathe. This was no longer training. This was an instructor about to kill a recruit in front of everyone. That was when the humans moved. Not all at once. not dramatically. But 12 people who had been standing separately suddenly became something else. Something that made every survival instinct in the yard scream warnings. Kang Minho stepped forward first. His voice was still quiet, still respectful, but it carried a tone that made even the other instructors stop what they were doing. "Sir," he said, "I believe you've made an error in judgment." Vexthul turned toward him, his hand still around Nari's throat. The attack came at dawn, not from Instructor Vexthul, though he had promised it. The attack came from the humans themselves, and it was nothing like what anyone expected. It started in the communications room. Park Sola, her broken arm still in. A sling somehow got past 3 security checkpoints that should have been impossible to breach. The Academy's systems began shutting down one by one. Lights flickered, doors locked. The automated defense systems that surrounded the compound went offline. At the same time, Lee Taeho appeared in the vehicle depot. The pilot, who had never seen the inside of a galactic military facility before, was somehow disabling aircraft and ground transports with surgical precision. He was not destroying them, just making sure they could not be used to call for help or escape. In the barracks, Nari moved through the alien recruits like a ghost, but instead of hurting them, she was healing them. The injuries they had sustained during training disappeared under her careful touch. The psychological damage from weeks of abuse began to fade as she spoke to them in gentle voices, explaining what was happening. And throughout it all, Kang Minho walked the halls of the academy like he owned them. He moved past guards who should have stopped him, through areas that should have been restricted, carrying himself with the confidence of someone who belonged there. The other humans were everywhere at once, each one accomplishing things that should have been impossible. They moved through the academy's security like it was not there. They knew things about the facility that they should never have learned. They worked together with a coordination that spoke of years of training, not days of acquaintance. But this was not random destruction. This was education. When Instructor Vexthul woke up in his quarters, he found Kang Minho sitting in a chair beside his bed. The small human was reading from a data tablet, completely relaxed. "Good morning, sir," Minho said politely. "I hope you slept well." Vexthul lunged for the emergency alarm beside his bed. His massive hand hit empty air. The alarm had been removed. In fact, his entire room had been cleaned out. Weapons, communication devices, even his clothes. All gone. "Looking for something?" Minho asked. He gestured to a small pile of items in the corner. "We moved your things for safety. Some of them looked dangerous." "How did you get in here?" Vexthul demanded. His door was locked with biometric scanners and code sequences that changed every day. "Your security system is very impressive," Minho admitted. "But it was designed to keep people out, not to keep people in. We spent the last few days learning how it worked. Park Sola is very good with computers. She used to be an engineer before. She became a soldier." Vexthul tried to use his personal communicator to call for help. The device was dead. "We also studied your staff schedules," Minho continued. "Carvin always checks the perimeter at this time. Sub-Instructor Morgan is in the training simulator. The guards are all dealing with various small emergencies around the compound." "What emergencies?" "Water leaks, power outages, kitchen fires. Nothing dangerous, but enough to keep everyone busy." Minho smiled. "Lee Taeho used to be a pilot, but before that he was a saboteur. He knows how to break things in ways that require immediate attention." Vexthul stood up, his full height towering over the sitting human. His claws extended and his muscles tensed for attack. "You have made a terrible mistake, little creature. When I kill you, the example will—" "Sit down, sir." The command was spoken quietly, but there was something in Minho's voice that made Vexthul pause. Not fear, not anger, just absolute certainty. "You are going to listen to what I have to say. You are going to learn some things about humans that your files did not tell you. And then you are going to make some choices about how this day ends." "I don't take orders from primitives," Vexthul snarled. "No, sir. You take orders from superior officers, people who have proven they can plan better, fight better, and lead better than you can." Minho's eyes were calm and cold. "Today, We are going to prove which one of us fits that description. That was when the first explosion shook the building. Not a destructive explosion. A precisely controlled charge that took out a support wall on the other side of the academy. The kind of explosion that would require extensive knowledge of structural, engineering, and demolitions to pull off safely. That was Kim Jae, Minho explained as dust fell from the ceiling. He used to build things. Now he knows how to unbuild them. A second explosion followed, then a third, each one carefully placed to cause maximum disruption with minimal actual damage. The academy was not being destroyed. It was being surgically dismantled. Your academy has been teaching the wrong lessons for a very long time, Minho continued. You think strength comes from breaking others. You think leadership means making people afraid of you. You think the best soldiers are the ones who follow orders without thinking. Vexthul tried to move toward the door. He found his path blocked by another human he had not noticed enter. This one was smaller than Minho, but moved with the fluid grace of someone who had spent years learning how to hurt people efficiently. But you never fought humans before, Minho went on. You never tried to break a species that spent 1,000,000 years learning how to survive on a world that was actively trying to kill them every day. You never dealt with creatures that turned cooperation into an art form because the alternative was extinction. The sounds of conflict were getting louder throughout the academy, but they were not the sounds of mindless violence. They were controlled, organized, professional. Every one of us has skills you never bothered to learn about, Minho explained. Park Solo was a combat engineer who specialized in urban warfare. Lee Taiho was a special forces pilot who ran missions behind enemy lines. Yunari was a field medic who kept soldiers alive in conditions that would kill most species. Another explosion rocked the building. This time, Vexthul could hear shouting. Not screams of pain, but orders being given and received. The alien. Recruits were not being hurt. They were being organized. And me? Minho stood up from his chair. I was what my people called a force multiplier. I took scared, confused groups of fighters and turned them into military units that could accomplish impossible things. I specialized in teaching people that they were stronger than they thought they were. The door to Vexthul's quarters opened. Sub-Instructor Carven slithered in, looking panicked. Sir, the recruits have taken control of the training facilities. They've blocked all the exits. They're coordinating like a professional military unit. The humans are leading them, but all the species are working together. What are your orders? Vexthul looked at the snake-like being, then at Minho, then back at Carven. How many casualties? None, sir. They're not trying to kill anyone. They're just taking over. That was almost worse than if they had been violent. Violence could be met with violence, but this was something else entirely. This was a demonstration that everything the Academy taught about leadership and control was wrong. Sir, Carven continued, they're requesting that you come to the main training hall. They say they want to negotiate. Negotiate? Vexthul's voice was dangerous. I don't negotiate with recruits. With respect, sir, Minho said, you're not in a position to refuse. Your academy is under our control. Your staff is neutralized. Your recruits have learned that they don't have to be afraid of you anymore. He walked to the window and gestured for Vexthul to look outside. The massive alien instructor moved to see what was happening. The training yard was full of recruits, but they were not cowering or hiding. The Veltar stood in formation, their crystal bodies glowing with inner light that spoke of confidence rather than fear. The Kresh moved in perfect coordination, their 6 arms working together to build defensive positions. The Morlin had taken up positions around the perimeter, their camouflage abilities making them nearly invisible. And moving among them all were the humans, not giving orders, but offering suggestions. Not dominating, but teaching. Not breaking, but building. This is what real leadership looks like, Minho said quietly. This is what happens when you show people they can be strong, instead of teaching them they are weak. Vexthul stared at the scene below. In all his years at the academy, he had never seen recruits work together like this. Different species cooperating instead of competing. Weak beings finding strength in unity. Fear being replaced by purpose. What do you want? He asked finally. We want to show you something, Minho replied. We want to demonstrate the difference between command and leadership, between strength and violence, between making soldiers and breaking spirits. He moved toward the door. Will you come and learn, sir? Or do you need us to drag you? The question was asked politely, but the threat was real. Vexthul could see other humans in the hallway now. They were not aggressive, but they were ready. And somehow he knew that fighting them would not go the way he expected. I will come, he said. But this changes nothing. You are still recruits. I am still your instructor. Yes, sir, Minho agreed. Let's go see what kind of instructor you really are. As they walked through the halls of the academy, Vexthul saw the extent of what the humans had accomplished. Every system was under their control, but nothing was destroyed. Every guard was neutralized, but no one was seriously hurt. Every recruit was organized and purposeful, but no one looked afraid. Instructor Vexthul sat in the chair at the center of the hall and looked around at faces that should have been terrified of him. The Veltar stood straight and tall, their crystal bodies glowing with confidence. The creche moved in perfect formation. No longer the scattered, fearful insects he had been breaking for weeks. The moorland showed bright, bold colors that spoke of courage rather than submission. And the humans stood among them all, not as leaders but as teachers. They had transformed his academy of fear into something else entirely. This is not how things work, he said, his voice echoing in the silence. I am the instructor. You are the recruits. There is an order to things, a hierarchy that has kept the galaxy safe for thousands of years. Kong Minho stepped forward. His face still showed the healing marks from where Vexthul had broken his nose on the first day. But there was no anger there, no desire for revenge, just a sad kind of understanding. You're right, sir. There is an order to things. But the order you've been teaching is not the one that keeps people safe. It's the one that keeps people afraid. Fear is necessary, Vexthul replied. Fear of consequences keeps soldiers disciplined. Fear of failure drives them to succeed. Fear of the enemy gives them strength. No, sir. Park Sola spoke up, her broken arm still in its sling. Fear makes people weak. It makes them think small. It makes them wait for orders instead of thinking for themselves. She gestured to the alien recruits around the hall. Look at them now. Really look. Are they weaker than they were when you were breaking them, or are they stronger? Vexthul did. Look. He had to admit that the recruits appeared more capable now than they had during weeks of his training. They stood taller, moved with more purpose, worked together in ways he had never seen before. But this was wrong. This was not how military discipline was supposed to work. You think you have won something, he said, his voice growing darker. You think you have proven some point about human superiority. But when the real military arrives, when they see what you have done to my academy, you will learn what real punishment looks like. Li Taiho laughed, not mockingly but with genuine amusement. Sir, the real military is not coming. We are the real military. We've been military our whole lives. You are recruits from a primitive world. No, sir. We are soldiers from Earth, and Earth has been at war for its entire history. Taiho's expression became more serious. Every one of us has been fighting since we could walk. Not in academies or training programs, but in real combat against real enemies. Yunari stepped forward, the claw marks on her throat still visible from Vexthul's attack. My planet has 7 billion people on it, sir. 7 billion individuals who learned to cooperate because the alternative was extinction. We've been through ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions, and we survived because we learned to be strong together instead of trying to be strong alone. Your academy teaches that the strong rule the weak, added another human. But Earth taught us that the strong protect the weak, that real strength comes from making others stronger, not from breaking them down. Vexthul felt his anger rising. These primitives thought they could lecture him about strength, about military discipline. He had been fighting wars before their species had learned to use fire. Enough, he roared, lunging up from the chair. I will show you what real strength looks like. His massive frame moved with surprising speed as he charged toward Kang Minho. his claws extended, ready to tear the small human apart in front of everyone. This would end their rebellion. This would show them the price of defiance. Minho did not try to run. He did not call for help. He simply stepped to the side as Vexthul's charge carried him past, then turned to face the massive alien, with calm, patient eyes. "Sir, you don't want to do this. I will tear you apart, little creature." Vexthul spun around and swung his clawed hand at Minho's head. The blow should have taken it clean off, but Minho was not there. He had moved just enough that the claws passed through empty air. Vexthul stumbled forward, off balance from the mist strike. "You're angry," Minho observed, circling slowly around the much larger being. "Anger makes you predictable." Vexthul attacked again, using his full reach and strength. This time Minho ducked under the swing and somehow ended up behind him. The human's small hands touched pressure points on Vexthul's back that sent pain shooting through his nervous system. "You're stronger than me," Minho continued conversationally. "But strength without control is just violence." The massive alien spun around, trying to grab the human, but Minho seemed to flow like water, always just out of reach. Every attack missed. Every grab found empty air. And worse, each time Vexthul attacked, Minho would touch him somewhere. A nerve cluster that sent numbness down his arm. A joint that suddenly refused to support his weight properly. Pressure points that made his vision blur. "You've been using intimidation for so long that you never learned to actually fight," Minho said as he avoided another clumsy swing. "You relied on being bigger and scarier. But size is not everything." Vexthul's breathing was getting labored. His attacks were becoming more desperate and less coordinated. The small human was making him look foolish in front of everyone. "Will not be mocked by a primitive," he bellowed, putting all his strength into one final charge. That was his mistake. Minho stepped forward instead of back. His hands found Vexthul's wrists as the massive arms came down. For a moment they were locked together, strength against strength. But Minho was not trying to match Vexthul's power. He was redirecting it. The human twisted to one side, using Vexthul's own momentum against him. The massive alien, committed to his charge, could not change direction fast enough. His feet left the ground as Minho guided him past and down. The sound of impact echoed through the hall. Vexthul hit the floor hard, his spine striking the metal with a sickening crack that everyone could hear clearly. He tried to get up. His arms and shoulders responded, but his legs did not. A cold feeling spread through his lower body as he realized what had happened. His spine was broken. The hall fell silent except for Vexthul's labored breathing. The massive instructor who had terrorized recruits for years lay paralyzed on the floor, staring up at the small human who had defeated him. "You," he whispered. "How?" Kang Minho knelt down beside him. There was no triumph in his face, no satisfaction. Just a tired kind of sadness. "You taught us, sir. Every day you showed us exactly what not to be. You showed us the difference between fear and respect, between intimidation and leadership, between violence and strength." He looked around the hall at all the watching faces. "And you taught us that we never want to become like you." Yunari approached with a medical kit. She knelt on the other side of Vexthul and began checking his injuries with professional efficiency. "The spinal damage is severe but not fatal," she reported. "He'll need medical attention, but he'll live." "Why?" Vexthul asked, his voice barely audible. "Why not just kill me? I would have killed you." "Because we're not you," Minho replied simply. "Because killing you wouldn't teach anyone anything useful. Because the point was never to hurt you. It was to show everyone that they don't have to be afraid." The sound of approaching aircraft filled the air outside. Heavy transports were landing in the Academy's courtyard. "The Commandant is here," Sub-Instructor Carvan announced nervously. "The full military command wants to know what happened." The recruits tensed, but the humans remained calm. "Let them come," Minho said, standing up. "We have things to show them too." Commandant Thelvar entered the hall with a full security detail, expecting to find chaos and rebellion. Instead, he found the most organized group of recruits he had ever seen. Multiple species working in perfect coordination, training equipment that had been modified to be more effective and less brutal, a wounded instructor receiving medical care from the very beings he had been torturing. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded. Kang Minho stepped forward and saluted with perfect military precision. "Sir, we have completed a comprehensive evaluation of this facility's training methods. We found them to be counterproductive to the goal of creating effective military personnel. You are recruits, you do not evaluate instructors. With respect, sir, we are soldiers. We have been soldiers longer than most of your staff has been alive, and we have some suggestions for improving the Academy's effectiveness." Park Sola approached with a data tablet. Despite her broken arm, she had prepared a full report. "The current system has a failure rate of 67%. Recruits either break completely or develop severe psychological damage that makes them unreliable in combat situations." Lee Taeho added, "Our modifications to the training program have improved performance across all metrics while reducing injury rates to nearly zero." Yoon Nari looked up from where she was treating Vexthul. "The physical and psychological abuse that has been standard practice here serves no military purpose. It only creates trauma that interferes with unit cohesion and decision-making ability." Commandant Thelvar looked around the hall at the confident, capable recruits, at the damaged instructor who had been the Academy's most feared trainer, at the humans who had somehow transformed his entire facility in a matter of hours. "And what do you suggest we do about this?"